King Belshazzar rose to power and gave a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles. While Belshazzar was drinking his wine, he gave orders to bring in the gold and silver goblets that Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. As they were getting drunk, the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote a message in a strange language in the plaster on the wall. The king's face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. The king summoned his wise men and said, "Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around his neck, and he will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom." But no one at the party could read what the hand had written. The queen heard the commotion, entered the room, and said, "There is a man in your kingdom who has the Spirit of God in him. His name is Daniel, and he will tell you what this writing means." Daniel was brought before the king, who said to him, "I have heard that the Spirit of God is in you. If you can help, I will make you the third most powerful man in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered the king, "You may keep your gifts for yourself and give your rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will tell you what the writing on the wall means. Your Majesty, your father Nebuchadnezzar was the most powerful man on earth, and he became arrogant and was driven into the wilderness. Only when he feared God did he have his throne restored to him. And now you, Belshazzar, are acting even more arrogant than him. And you have set yourself up against the God of heaven, the God who holds your life in his hand. Our Lord will not be mocked. He has numbered your days." Belshazzar was shocked, but still made good on his word and elevated Daniel to third in the kingdom. However, his own fate could not be reversed. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius became king. Daniel had become so distinguished among the leaders of Babylon that King Darius planned to put him in charge of the entire kingdom. At this, the other government officials tried to find some dirt on Daniel, yet they could find no corruption in him. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God." Inspired by an idea, the officials went to King Darius and said, "We wish for you to make a decree saying that anyone who prays to a god other than you for the next 30 days will be thrown into the lion's den." This idea pleased King Darius, and he put the decree in writing. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened towards Jerusalem. Unfazed, 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Even though the king had demanded that Daniel privatize his faith, he was going public.
Hey, I need you guys to do me a favor. When you're up here worshiping, please don't touch the stuff on stage. What did I just say? Don't touch the stuff on stage. There's a reason that we hire some people and pay them lots of money to move all this stuff. Oh wait, we don't actually pay anybody, I'm just kidding. But please, don't touch the stuff on stage, okay? You guys do that for me?
Yes.
Thank you. We made it. Last full day of camp. Who's excited? Who wants to stay for another week? Nah, not with me, you're not, because I'm going home tomorrow. So, today, we're going to continue, as you just saw, through the story of Daniel. Day 1, we talked about being called, that God had a plan, and Daniel didn't know what that plan was for his life. Just like we don't know what God is planning, but God does have a plan. Day 2, we talked about being committed to God's plan, that no matter what it is, we can trust God that he has a plan for us. Yesterday, we talked about community, that we shouldn't go it alone, that God gives us friends, and he is there for us. Today, we're talking about being carried, that we need to trust God through adversity. And adversity is kind of one of those big words. I had to look it up because I didn't even know what it meant. And it means misery or trouble. So we need to trust God when things are going terrible, when we are having a bad day, when we're having bad grades, when we're dealing with things at home, when we're just miserable. Those are the times that we need to turn to God and trust him the most, because of everything we talked about this week, that he has a plan, that he's going to put people around us that are going to be with us and for help pray for us. But God is ultimately the one that's going to carry us through the adversity. No, where's Silas? You ready, bud? Come on up. Everybody give Silas a hand. Look at it, he took a shower and did his hair, got a fresh haircut to come up here. That's awesome. You ready?
and satraps, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Then the high officials and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. But they could find no ground for the complaint or any fault, because he was faithful, and no error or fault was found in him. Then these men said, "We shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel, unless we find it in connection with the law of his God." Then these high officials came by agreement to the king and said to him, "O King Darius, live forever." All the high officials of the kingdom are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an injunction that whoever makes petition to any god or man for 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of the lions. Therefore King Darius signed the document and injunction. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house, where he had windows in his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks for his God, as he had done previously. Then these men came by agreement and found Daniel making petition and plea before his God. Then they came near and said before the king concerning the injunction, "O king, did you not sign an injunction that anyone who makes petition to any god or man within 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of the lions?" The king answered and said, "The thing stands fast according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be revoked." Then they answered and said before the king, "Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or the injunction you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day." Then the king, when he heard these words, was much distressed, and set his mind to deliver Daniel, and he labored till the sun went down to rescue him. Then the king commanded, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of the lions. The king declared to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you."
Good job. So, all throughout the week, and as you read the book of Daniel, the story of Daniel, Daniel has nothing but trials and troubles and misery, potential misery in his life. He has adversity. And here, in what Silas just read, is the other wise men, the other smart people, the ones that couldn't tell Nebuchadnezzar his own dream and or what it meant, realized that there's no way. They didn't like Daniel because Daniel was an outcast. Daniel didn't belong to their country. Daniel was a Jewish boy. And they realized that the only way that they were going to get rid of Daniel was to go after his God. He was a man of good character. He was smart. He was probably good looking. Everybody liked him. He was that kid in school that everybody likes, that's popular, that most of us don't like. I was never that kid, obviously. So they realized that the only way that they're going to be able to, sorry, I can't stop playing with these wires. The only way that they are going to get rid of Daniel is to attack his God, attack his beliefs. And so they tricked the king into signing a petition to get rid of Daniel. And when Daniel goes and says, "You know what, I see the petition, I know what it says, but I still trust God," Daniel says, "I'm going to go and pray. That's what I'm not supposed to do according to the king, but God is more important to me. My belief, my relationship with God is more important to me than my position, than my status, how other people think about me. That's more important to me. What God thinks, how God feels about me, what God says about me is more important than what my friends think, than what the king thinks, what other people think about me." So he goes and prays. And then gets caught. He's not doing anything wrong, according to God, but according to the rule of the land, he got caught. So he gets in trouble, and they're going to throw him in the lion's den. But it says something interesting. The king says, "Wait a minute, I like Daniel. he's been here a long time, and I like him. I don't want anything to happen to him. And to paraphrase what Silas read, the king stayed up all night trying to figure out, how do I get Daniel out of trouble? How do I not have to send him? He was the king. He could have done whatever he wanted. He could have just said, hey, you know what? I changed my mind, and I'm not going to throw him in the lion's den. But he couldn't do that because then he would lose face with all the other people that were underneath him. So Daniel says, you know what? It's all right. Throw me in the lion's den. And the last thing that Silas read was the king said, may your God save you. See, because Daniel had been in Babylon for so long, and he had a reputation, even though he'd been through the eating the new foods and learning a new language, and his friends being thrown in the fiery furnace and some of the other stuff that he's dealt with, he always knew that God had a plan, and he trusted God. Even though his life had a lot of troubles and he was probably miserable because other people were always trying to attack him, he still trusted in God. Verse 10 says, but when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home, knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with the windows open towards Jerusalem, and he prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to God. He wasn't going to let anything stop him. He knew that's what God wanted him to do. God wanted him to have a relationship with him. Just like God wants each and every one of us in here to have a relationship with him. It says that Daniel got down on his knees 3 times a day, opened up the window, so he wasn't hiding in a closet. He wasn't scared of what anybody thought. He wasn't changing his daily routine just because somebody was making fun of him, or just because somebody was picking on him, or just because somebody said, well, God is dumb, and God is silly, and you shouldn't read the Bible because it's wrong. Daniel said, you know what? I know that the Bible is true. I know that God loves me. I know that God has a plan for me. I know that God is going to protect me. I know I have other friends that love me and are going to pray for me and pray with me. So I'm going to still continue to get down on my knees every day, and I'm still going to continue to pray to God. Even the king, verse 16, says the king said, may your God, whom you serve faithfully, rescue you. Even the king recognized that God had protected Daniel. It was throughout the story of Daniel, and we didn't get to all of it, but throughout the story of Daniel, there's 3 separate kings that Daniel ruled under. 3 separate kings who were supposed to hate Daniel. 3 separate kings who were supposed to punish him, and that wanted Daniel and his friends to be like them, not like they were. 3 separate kings who wanted these Jewish boys to be Babylonians, or at least to act like them, to talk like them, to think like them. And Daniel and his friends said, we're not going to do that. And 3 separate kings realized that, you know what, there's something special about this kid Daniel. And what was special about him is he trusted God. He knew God that had a plan for his life. God had a pattern of showing up. God had a pattern of showing up and protecting Daniel, protecting his friends. God had a pattern of saying, Daniel, you're standing up for me. I'm going to stand up and protect you. Daniel, you have been through some pretty terrible things. Your parents have been divorced. Your grandma passed away. You failed a class. You get bullied. You get picked on. You don't have a whole lot of friends. But I still love you. And I'm still going to protect you. I'm still going to walk through this with you. If I have to pick you up and carry you, I'm going to do that. So God has a pattern of showing up, even in our lives. Sometimes we don't realize it. Sometimes we don't think about it. But God has a pattern of showing up. He's been here all week. He's here with us now. But Daniel showed us that no matter the situation, no matter what's going on in our lives, no matter what's going on in our lives, no matter what's happening, no matter how bad sometimes our lives look, no matter the situation that we're dealing with, Daniel showed us that God does have a plan for our lives. And that we can choose to follow that plan. Sometimes we need those friends to go with us, but there are people out there that care about us. Even if it's just one person. Even if it's an adult, or even if it's sometimes it feels like not always this way, but sometimes you feel completely alone. But Jesus is there with you. We saw yesterday in the story of the fiery furnace, and I didn't talk about it a lot yesterday, but in the fiery furnace, when they threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fiery furnace, he said there was a fourth man in there. That fourth man was Jesus. Jesus showed up. He helped get them through. Talk about trouble and adversity, literally being, could you guys imagine going, like, the fire we have here, the campfire we have here at night is little compared to the fiery furnace that these guys were thrown in. But could you imagine going, just standing in the fire and being, oh, I'm going to be, no, our clothes would catch on fire, our feet would burn. None of that happened because God carried them through the fire. So Monday, right, we talked about God has a plan. Tuesday, we talked about choosing that plan. And again, we don't know what that plan is. But we often have no idea what God is doing in our lives. Sometimes I was talking to a couple of the guys last night, and one of the hardest things, I've been in youth ministry over 10 years. One of the hardest things for us as youth pastors is sometimes we never get to see you guys as you get older, right? There's, out of the 150 kids that are here, there's only a small handful of you that are actually from our church. So the rest of you, I may never see you guys again. So I have no idea, but I have to trust that the stuff we're talking about this week, the decisions that you guys are making, the conversations that you're having with your counselors, I have to trust that God is going to take care of you and that you're going to choose to follow God. And then yesterday, again, we talked about community, we talked about friendship, we talked about being with God. You know, as I got thinking about this today, as I was preparing today, I was thinking, what have I been through in my life that I had to trust God to carry me? And there was so many stories that popped in my head, but the most recent one, and probably the biggest, hardest one in my life, has to do with one of my daughters. Most of you guys have seen my two little girls run around. The little one, her name is Dylan Marie. Most of you wouldn't know by looking at her, but about 2 years ago, well, 3 years ago now, I guess, she stopped eating. She was just about a year old, and she stopped eating. She wouldn't eat anything. She wouldn't put anything in her mouth. And if you've ever been around babies, you know that everything goes in their mouth. Their fingers, their toys, their food, their toes, doesn't matter what it is. She wouldn't put anything in her mouth. She stopped eating. She lost, I think it was like 10 pounds, something like that. Now, when I say 10 pounds, that's a good day. Not when you're 2 years old or a year old. When you only weigh 19, 20 pounds and you lose 10 pounds. So we had to put her, throughout this, we had to put her in the hospital. We went and took her for tests, and nobody could figure out what was going on, and she kept losing weight, and we couldn't figure it out. And the doctors had no idea, and it got to the point where we didn't know what to do. We knew that God loved us, and we knew that we loved her, and we knew that God had a plan because we trust God, but we didn't know what that plan was. It was scary. It was, and I debated putting pictures up, but she was basically skin and bone. She basically looked like a skeleton with skin. That's how small she was. And it got to the point where we had to put her in the hospital, and we had to put a feeding tube in. And the first surgery didn't go well. The doctor came back out and said, I can't do the surgery, the whatever doesn't line up. And so we're gonna have to come back tomorrow, and we're gonna have to do a more serious surgery. I remember thinking, what is going on? Like, here she is, a year old, year and a half old, and there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do but hold her and try and continue to get her to eat and to pray for her and to try and comfort my wife. And I remember asking God, what is going on? And as scared as we were and as nervous as we were, and as much as We trusted God. We knew that something could happen. I mean, you guys are all smart enough to know that when you don't eat for long enough, you die. And that was, we didn't talk about it a lot, but it was a reality that this could happen, that this could be it for our daughter. We'd already, a few years earlier, my wife had a miscarriage, so we'd already lost one child, and it just, the thought of losing a second child was just, oh, it was terrible. And all we could do was pray and trust God. Talk about being miserable, talk about being in trouble. So that she came out of surgery, and so she had a feeding tube for a year, I think it was. She had a feeding tube, so she had a little backpack that went with her, and everywhere we went, we had to have this little backpack, and she had a feeding tube that was connected to it, and several times a day we had to change it, and that's the only way she could eat, because she still wouldn't put anything in her mouth. Finally, after about a year, I think it was on accident, but she was, we took her to feeding therapy, and we kept working with her, and she started gaining a little bit of weight through the feeding tube, but it was more like she was sustaining. She wasn't gaining any weight. And one day she was playing with, I don't remember what it was, had it in her mouth, and she started to choke on it, and all of a sudden she swallowed it. And that was kind of the turning point. She realized, I can actually do this. I can actually eat. And so from there, it was another maybe 6 months. She still had the feeding tube and was still eating. Now, like I said, to look at her, she's running around here, and most of you guys wouldn't even know that there was something wrong with her. She's still small for her size because she was so far delayed. So I tell you guys this to say that there was nothing I could do. As her dad, as a dad, there's nothing I wouldn't do to protect my kids. There's nothing I wouldn't do if I could have taken her place, I would have, but there was nothing I could do. I couldn't change it. All I could do was trust God, trust that He had a plan. And it might be easy for me to say it now because we're on the other side of it, but if we had lost her, it would have been terrible. But God still would have had a plan in that. And that's what Daniel said, and that's what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said was, we know that God is going to protect us, but even if He doesn't, even if God doesn't do what I pray for, even if God hadn't saved my daughter, even if God doesn't heal my parents' marriage, even if my grandma doesn't get better and come out of the hospital, I'm still going to trust God. I'm still going to make a choice every day. Just like Daniel, I'm going to make a choice every day to get down on my knees and thank God for what I have and to trust Him and to trust His plan. And sometimes you just need to literally be picked up and let God carry you through. So as we wrap up, don't leave here today. Don't leave here today without saying, God, I trust you. I don't know how. I don't know what that looks like. I'm scared. You might be the only person in your home or your family that's a Christian. That's a scary thing. You might say, I don't know all the right Bible verses. I don't know how to pray. But God, I know you're real, and I know you love me, and I know you have a plan. I'm going to choose to follow that plan, and I'm going to choose to trust you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you. I thank you for picking us up and carrying us. I thank you for being strong enough and loving us enough that no matter the situation, no matter how upset or how tired or how scared or how hungry we are, thank you that no matter what the world throws at us or is thrown at us, the trouble, the misery that we have to deal with in our lives, I thank you that you are right there, willing and able and ready to carry us. I thank you that you have given us your Son. I thank you that we have the option to say, I trust you, Jesus, and I accept that gift that you have given me. Thank you for dying on the cross for each and every one of us. I pray for all the decisions that are going to be made this week or that have been made this week, that this would be the turning point, that we know you have a plan and that we can choose you and that you are there to carry us through. We have people that love us. In your name I pray. Amen.